What is up, dude?
Dude, not a whole lot. Just a good day of working. And I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, our first venture out to Glen Helen on the Stark Varg.
Me too.
Super excited because you've ridden it at a couple different tracks now. Kahia Creek, Fox Raceway, namely. The bike performed, I mean, dare I say flawless there? But I'm really excited to put it on a track that really pushes a bike to its limits. It's fast, choppy, low traction environments. Granted, Glen Helen isn't known for having big or just a lot of jumps in general. So I'm really excited to put that bike in different environments and see how it thrives.
What's been really fun is I knew from the first time when I rode the bike there was potential in the suspension and making it better, but I definitely underestimated to how much better it could be. I share this because when a bike already works really well just in general, whether it's suspension, engine, handling, it's hard to get the bike to perform that much better. You can still improve it, but the increments at which you can improve it usually become a lot smaller at that point because there isn't nearly as much potential still left on the table. So I remember riding that bike stock thinking like, wow, what a great job Stark has done. But what did stood out was I was thinking we could probably get the small bump compliance to be a little bit better. By no means is it bad. It's quite good stock. But I was thinking, you know what? Let's be greedy. I think we can get that a little bit better. And it just felt a little heavy sometimes when the bike landed. Again, not bad. Compared to most stock bikes, the Stark is probably the best suspended bike next to the Yamaha, if we're talking about stock for stock, right off the showroom floor. But I did feel like we had some potential. What we ended up with, though, is way better than what I thought we would have gotten. Granted, it did take 2 attempts on our end, so we're officially on revalve number 2 on the Stark, and that's when it really made me be like, I can't believe we got this bike working that good. It became clear to me that this is our new benchmark for all bikes in terms of how good we want suspension to feel.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very well said. And as you alluded to, it is our second shot at it. They're not all hole-in-ones. So we go back, we did our homework, and just to recap, if you haven't watched the first episode, our thoughts were, hey, it was a little too soft, especially when you're pushing the bike. We were bottoming out the bike a little bit. We're looking for a little bit more hold up, but at the same time, we wanted to get greedy by not sacrificing any small bump compliance or any comfort out of the fork or shock. And I think we really did that. So we went from the 4.6 springs and the forks to the 4.8s.
We did.
And then just beefed up the valving and the shock while keeping the stock spring rate.
Yes, which is a 5.5 kilogram.
Yep. And I mean, it was on the money. I mean, just everywhere. Like, again, going back to what I just said, it was like we gained hold up and we gained bottoming resistance. Part of that is due to having the JBI titanium pro perch in there. We also have the fork volume spacers in there, which is another great addition. But yeah, I mean, the forks, just going from the 4.6 to the 4.8, had that little bit of extra hold up that we were looking for and bottoming resistance a little bit. But also with the shock was a big difference, in my opinion, to where you could still coming out of a corner, hit a succession of acceleration bumps, still drive right over those things in comfort, but then launch a jump to flat pretty much, or case a jump, or hit it perfectly, and you still have that comfort landing or not a harsh bottom out character. So it was really just the best of both worlds, which normally you sacrifice one to gain the other. And I was really surprised to see that, hey, we could gain in one area while not sacrificing in another. We actually just maintained the same level of performance.
Yeah, really well summed up, man. I'm glad we did make that spring rate change on the forks. For those of you curious on more of the specifics, Ant has the E series suspension.
Yes.
So if you looked on the fork lugs, it's stamped E. So that'll tell you it's the softest springs. That's 4.6s in the forks. Sorry, this would be 0.47 kilograms or 4.6 newtons, depending on the units you want to reference for the forks. And that's paired with a 54 Newton shock or a 5.5 kilogram shock. Again, depending on the units you want to reference. And that's how we rode the bike stock and for our first revalve. And then from there, you and I kind of talked, we referenced some other bikes, and what I explained to Anthony was, hey, the way this bike is set up, it's a little heavier than a 450, but the fork springs in it are softer fork springs than what you would find in like a 250F. And he also has a Kawasaki 450 for reference. And on that, we went from the stock fork springs from a 5.0 to a 4.8. And I'm sharing with this with you guys so you can help have reference and relate to what we did and why. So we're looking at that bike thinking, man, you know what? We're getting really good sag numbers with the shock spring, but these fork springs seem a little soft in reference to what we're doing with the shock. So that's what made us go up on the fork spring rates to, again, 4/8 up front and a 54 in the back, or 0.47 or 5.5, depending on, again, what units you want to utilize. With that in mind, I think that's the better spring rate balance for those bikes. A 5.5 with 4/8. If you're running a 4.7, then you should go from the, if you have the heavier springs, you should go from the 5.7 rear. Keep that, but go up to 5.0 on the forks. And then same with the next rate up. If you got the stiffest shock spring, then I would find the next level stiffer fork springs, which would be 5.3s or 5.2s for that. Even if you're not going to do any valving, we feel like that would be a better balance of just kind of front to back for it. But yeah, I was impressed. The more we turn that compression clicker in, the bike still stayed very comfortable charging into corners and coming out of corners, and that just blew my mind away.
Yeah, that was my favorite part, because we tested on a day where unfortunately the track didn't get that rough, which is one of the reasons why we're going to Glen Helen tomorrow to see how it holds up in gnarly conditions. But the day we tested at Fox Raceway, it was pretty smooth. So when you went out for the first session, it was like hammer the throttle away pretty much. And you know, the track didn't slow down to a point to where you or I had to come into a set of braking bumps slower because the track got so gnarly. We were hitting bumps at the same rate of speed. So eventually we had to go a little bit stiffer. And what you alluded to is that we didn't sacrifice any comfortability or small bump compliance. We only gained some more hold up and some more overall performance from both the fork and shock without really sacrificing anything, which is the real big takeaway. Obviously, no bike setup or no bike in general is going to be perfect. There's always ways to improve. And, you know, I'm sure 3 to 6 months down the road from now, we'll even have a setting better than what we have now currently in the Stark Varg. But as of right now, I feel like this is just a great starting point. And if you have a Stark Varg and if you see us at the track, don't be shy. Come up to us, and you're more than welcome to spin a couple laps on my personal bike and really get a back-to-back comparison between the two, because it's night and day. I even had a close friend of mine who self-admittedly is a horrible test rider, ride them back-to-back, and he jumped on my bike after riding his personal bike, which is also the E stamp on the fork lug. So that was really a good apples-to-apples comparison. And right away, he was like, oh my gosh, the forks are so much more plush, but I don't notice the shock a whole lot. So I told him to go back out on his personal bike. He did about 2 laps, and he's like, oh my gosh, my shock is so harsh. It doesn't have so much more extra feedback, whereas your shock is really plush, comfortable on the jumps. And yeah, I was super surprised to see him notice that, because he doesn't notice anything. So if he noticed it, we're off to a really good start.
So internally, it is KYB suspension, and we have not had to valve it in a very unique or distinctly unique way as we've had to do for any gas bikes. I share this with you because the settings that we kind of have in there are very similar and inspired by like our Yamaha settings. This is important because it goes to show that even though it is an e-bike, it still handles and feels relatively similar to any other dirt bike. But I want to touch on the point of, I think what we're learning is, even though the settings are relatively similar, although unique to Stark, it shows how much influence not having a vibrating motor has on the bike, not having a bunch of mass rotating inside of it. I know we've touched on this topic before, but as we tune the suspension and keep getting the bike better and better, it's showing us now how much influence the chassis and the motor has on the bike. Because I'm sure if we put these same settings into a Yamaha, or let's say same style of settings into a Yamaha, we will get better results, but they're still not going to be the same as what we're getting right now. And that's why I say I think Stark Varg is now going to be our new benchmark for all bikes. Gas 4 strokes, gas 2 strokes. Again, I get we probably can't get the bike to feel the same as a Stark, but it's good to know what's possible and what to shoot for. And it's crazy to me that a brand new bike, only been out for a year now, we're both quickly finding to be the best performing bike. At least in suspension. I think motor-wise too, but at least in suspension, it's really impressive.
We talk about at the shop here having a reference point, and stock was our reference point before we started revalving it, and our first JBI spec was by far better than what was our reference point with the stock stuff, and then now our iteration 2 of the JBI spec for the Stark Vargs was another step forward from JBI spec number 1. So yeah, man, I can't even imagine how much better it's gonna get, because my new reference point is the best I have. So I just don't know how it's really gonna get much better than that. But I think with that being said, though, again, like what I was talking about earlier, is no bike setup is perfect, and we're gonna find some things and find the gray areas and loopholes in the setup to make it perform better at all areas of the track.
I'm really pleased with what we developed for the Stark so far. And now I believe what we continue to learn with it will actually trickle down and help us with our other bikes. The way it rides and how it handles and feels, it'll allow us to be more in tune with the bike and pick out on areas we can improve than maybe we can on a gas bike. I could be wrong on this. We're going to try it. I have a hunch that this will be a good route to continue our testing and development, but I'm excited. So really, this is kind of a good news for everybody. If you're on Stark, we've got some really good moto settings. If you're on gas bikes, well, we've already got some good moto settings for those, but now I think they're going to get even better now knowing that potential that's out there and what we can keep learning from this new bike.
Yeah, and one of our Ride JBI athletes, Lincoln Leverton, recently linked up with Stark. He's been killing it on the ramp so far. I mean, it's taken him pretty much little to no time to adapt to the bike with JBI spec FMX valving, of course. And yeah, I mean, just getting to hear his feedback, he seems to be really stoked on the bike, but also the suspension. And you know, we offer suspension settings for all different types: arena cross, supercross, motocross, hard enduro, flowy single track. I mean, pretty much you name it, we've got it all. So if you got a Stark Varg, I mean, they pretty much do it all. And yeah, we can get you covered, that's for sure.
Keep tuned in. We're going to try to link up with Lincoln and maybe do a little back-to-back test with his stock Stark Varg and Anthony's. What's cool is Lincoln and Anthony and myself were all relatively around the same height, weight. After that, I'm the slowest. Anthony's next fastest, and then Lincoln takes the cake on that. So look for us to come out with that relatively soon, and then hopefully we can link up with some maybe official Stark people and get some feedback from them.
Who knows? We cannot confirm nor deny that we have
true.
Something in the works. So thank you guys for tuning in to this. I don't know what we're calling this. We have race recap, shop talk, JBI spec. I guess this would be a JBI spec video.
Yeah, continuous improvement.
Continuous improvement update. Yeah. Yes, ride report of the Stark Future Varg. Thank you guys for watching once again. We will see you in the next one.